The large silver hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with light and sound, filled with voices from hundreds of alien species, each one unique, each one confident in their place among the stars. Ships of all sizes floated outside the station's leak. Designs, glowing hulls, and elegant engines humming with power. Then came the humans. Their arrival was quiet, not grand. A small group of ships moved into orbit, Told, Barksy, and Plain, the largest one. The Marshall Ridge looked more like a cargo hauler than a flagship. Its gray hull bore scratches and old paint, not smooth or shiny like the others. Inside the council hall, a few chuckles broke out. Some aliens didn't bother hiding their smirks. Others simply ignored the humans, as if they weren't worth noticing. Captain Laura Briggs stepped onto the hall's main floor with steady steps. She wore a simple navy uniform, her long brown hair tied back. Her face was calm, but her eyes scanned everything, taking in the room. Behind her walked Commander Ethan Cole, her second-in-command, and 2 lieutenants. An alien with bright yellow scales and 4 arms leaned toward another and whispered, "Are those their warships? They look like mining rigs." The second alien laughed, a sharp sound like clicking glass. Briggs heard it, but said nothing. She stopped at the speaking platform, looked up at the council members, and gave a short nod. "Earth acknowledges the Galactic Council," she said, her voice clear. "We are honored to join you here," the council leader. A tall creature with glowing rings around its head replied, "We welcome your world, Earth. May your time among us be one of learning." Another alien delegate, thin and covered in silver fur, stood. "Do you bring samples of your military fleet? The show of strength is tradition." Briggs nodded once to Ethan. He tapped a device, and a projection appeared above them, showing images of the Marshall Ridge and a few other ships. Murmurs rose across the hall. A few aliens scoffed openly. One of them, with green skin and red eyes, asked loudly, "Is that your strongest vessel? It looks like it was built with scrap metal." Ethan stiffened. But Briggs gave him a small shake of her head. Instead, she answered, "It is reliable, strong, and tested in battle. It has defended colonies, escorted convoys, and held the line against raiders." The green-skinned delegate waved a hand. "Against pirates, perhaps, but not a real fleet." Briggs didn't argue. She knew words would not change their minds. Not now, later, in a small meeting room near the hall. Briggs sat with her officers. They watched through a glass wall as alien delegates laughed and pointed at the human ships displayed on a screen. "They think we're a joke," said Lieutenant Maria Lane, frowning. "Like we're just playing at space travel." "Let them laugh," said Briggs, her voice calm. "We didn't come here to impress them with shine. We came to watch, to learn, and to be ready." Commander Cole leaned forward. "What if they don't take us seriously when things go bad?" "We know the reports, the Varnock, are moving again." Briggs nodded slowly. "Then we won't wait for permission. We do what we must to protect our people, and when the time comes, they'll see who we really are." Outside the station, the Marshall Ridge sat quietly among the stars. Beside it floated the Kestrel Wind, a fast attack frigate, and the Black Grove, a heavy cruiser with thick armor and deep scan sensors. They were not beautiful ships, but they were strong. Each one carried scars from past fight scorch marks, patched armor, and quiet systems that did not glow but worked with purpose. Each one was ready. Back inside, the council session moved on. Alien voices filled the chamber with talks of trade, routes, alliances, and border disputes. Human representatives listened. They said little, but they paid attention to every word, every face. Briggs leaned close to Cole and whispered, "They look down on us because our ships aren't pretty, but we build for war, not show." Cole smiled slightly. "Maybe that's why we survive, even when they don't," at the far end of the hall. A red light blinked once, then went out, a silent signal from Earth Command. A short message received by Briggs's implant. She closed her eyes briefly, then stood. "Let's head back to the ship. There's something coming. We need to prepare." No one asked what she meant. They trusted her. As the humans walked out of the council chamber, the laughter followed them. But it would not last long. The stars at the edge of the known galaxy pulsed with strange light. Deep space was quiet. They're too quiet. In that quiet, something ancient moved. Captain Laura Briggs stood alone in the observation deck of the Resolute. Her hands rested lightly on the railing, and her eyes followed a slow-moving cloud drifting Past the distant rings of a gas giant, the view was peaceful, but her mind was not. "Do you feel it too?" she asked. Commander Ethan Cole stepped up beside her. "Something's coming," he said. "We weren't wrong," Laura said, her voice firm. "The Varnock are back." Across space, strange signals had begun to echo through the void. Distant colonies went silent. Mining outposts stopped sending reports. Merchant routes that were once safe were now cold. The signs were there, but the Council chose to ignore them. "They don't want to believe it," Ethan said. "If the Varnock are returning, it means their peace was a lie, and Earth." Laura asked. "Earth is watching," he said, "and preparing on board the human fleet." Drills were held twice daily. Ship systems were tested until they groaned. The Resolute was joined by the heavy cruiser Ironbridge, the stealth frigate Shadow Path, and the medical ship Hearthlight. Together, they made up Task Force Delta 7, an unofficial formation of volunteers and veterans. Lieutenant Myra Grant worked late nights, improving the targeting systems on the Ironbridge nearby. Ensign Marcus Bell developed new jamming software that could fool most alien sensors. Others ran silent war games through asteroid belts. They had no orders from the Council, no alliances, no support, but they had each other. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, debates turned to shouting. Reports came in from the Maderi border world's unknown ships seen near trading posts. Strange energy pulses, missing scout patrols. "These are just rumors," said one council member. "We should not jump to war over shadows," said another, only the Takari delegate. The young officer who once nodded at Briggs stood up. "We should listen to the humans," he said. "They know war better than most." His voice was drowned in laughter. Back aboard Shadowpath, Commander Nate Harris stared at the star maps. Red markers showed fading colonies. Trade routes turned gray. He tapped the console, trying to find a pattern. "They're testing us," he said to himself, watching how long it takes us to react at Earth Command deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Carabel received a message. From Laura Briggs, a single sentence. "They are moving." Kara read the message twice. Then she stood, walked into the war room, and turned on the secure line. "Activate Protocol Iron Tide," she said. "Send the fleet to silent alert. Begin contact with colony militias. Do it quietly." One by one, human ships across the stars began to shift position. Satellites turned. Relays lit up with coded signals. Civilian transports received new routes with hidden escort orders. The humans were not waiting. In the dark beyond the Maderi system, something stirred. The first Varnock ship appeared like a shadow peeling away from space itself. Black as the void, silent and massive, its surface crawled with energy tendrils and strange living armor. It opened a rift, and more came through. 10 ships, 50, 100, all heading toward Council space, but one changed course. It turned toward the outer colonies. It turned toward Earth territory, back on the Resolute. Alarms blinked quietly in the background. Laura Briggs looked out again at the stars. "Soon," she said, and for the first time in decades, the silence of space was broken by the quiet hum of war preparing itself. The stars above Maderi Prime shimmered in silence. Maderi was a peaceful world, known for its sky markets and floating gardens. Traders from across the galaxy docked at its stations, drank local tea, and talked politics they barely understood. That peace ended in 13 seconds. Without warning, the sky turned black. Dozens of massive Varnock warships broke through subspace like knives through silk. Each one was covered in living metal, pulsing with strange red light. The orbiting trade station barely had time to raise its shields before it was split in two. No messages were sent. No warnings, no survivors. A passing courier ship picked up the signal burst from the explosion and relayed it through 6 relay nodes before reaching the horizon veil. Captain Laura Briggs stared at the hull screen as images of fire and debris spun before her eyes. Her crew stood silent behind her, no one daring to speak. "They're not scouting anymore," said Ethan quietly. "This was an execution." Laura didn't blink. "Prepare the fleet. We move now, but the Council hasn't given us permission," said Lieutenant Grant, her voice tight. "We're not waiting for permission," Laura replied. "Set course for Maderi Prime. Priority, emergency jump, the ships." AI calculated the route in seconds. Engines powered up and across space. The rest of Task Force Delta 7 received the call. On the Iron Bridge, Captain Daniel Rhodes nodded at the alert. Finally, he said, on the Shadow Path, Commander Nate Harris whispered, "Let's show them what we've built." In under an hour, the fleet entered jump space, a tunnel of burning light that tore across stars when they dropped out near Maderi. The scene was worse than they imagined. The trade station was gone. Maderi's orbital defense grid had been shattered. 3 Varnic cruisers circled the planet like vultures. "Battle stations," Briggs ordered. Her voice was low, but every word carried weight. The Horizon Veil moved like a beast through smoke. Its old armor was thick, not graceful. Its engines growled instead of purred. But when its cannons came online, space itself seemed to shiver. The Varnock noticed the fleet. They turned, and they charged. Briggs let them. She waited. "Closer, closer. Fire," she said. The Horizon Veil released a storm. Missiles with old-school warheads screamed through vacuum. Rail punched holes in shields like a hammer through glass. Plasma lances lit up the dark. One Varna cruiser exploded, torn apart by kinetic strikes that bored into its core. The Iron Bridge took a direct hit, but stayed in the fight, rotating its turret, batteries, and locking onto a second target. The Shadow Path vanished from sight. "Where did it go?" Grant asked. "Watch," Briggs replied. Seconds later, the third Varnock ship began spinning out of control. Its engines failed, its navigation blinded. Then the Shadow Path reappeared above it and dropped a payload directly onto its command deck. "That's what 20 years of silent tech gets you," Ethan murmured. "In 28 minutes. The battle ended. The human fleet had not only survived, they had won. Briggs stood at the bridge window, watching the wreckage drift. "Send a message to the Council," she said. "Tell them Maderi still stands." Grant looked at her. "What should we say about who defended it?" Briggs smiled. "Just a little. Say it was the primitives." And in the black silence of space, the reputation of Earth changed forever. No one on the Galactic Council expected the humans to survive Maderi. They expected delay, maybe resistance, but not victory. Yet the Varnock ship wreckage was still drifting in orbit, smoking and silent. The humans had come and carved open a force meant to crush them. Now, every eye turned to the ship that led the assault, the Horizon Veil. She was not fast. She was not pretty, but she was dangerous from the outside. The Horizon Veil looked like a giant metal spine with engines bolted onto its back. Layers of hardened armor covered older layers. Her hull still bore scars from battles against pirates, rogue AI fleets, and asteroid storms inside. She was a machine built for one thing: war. Captain Laura Briggs walked through the central corridor. Her boots echoed off steel floors. Crew members stepped aside with nods of respect. Some had served with her for years, others had just joined, but all knew she was not just a captain. She was the one who turned the tide. "Status?" she asked. "Engines nominal," said Chief Ramirez, wiping oil from his hands. "Reactor stable." "Guns are ready." Ethan Cole handed her a data slate. "One railgun needs tuning, but she fired true if it counts." Briggs nodded. "She will count." The Horizon Veil's weapon systems were a mix of old Earth tech and battlefield upgrades. 2 heavy kinetic railguns ran along her spine, launching tungsten rods at hypersonic speeds. Dozens of vertical missile silos lined the sides, loaded with fusion-tipped warheads. Smaller plasma turrets provided 360-degree defense, and under her hull, stealth pods could launch swarms of decoys and countermeasures. But her greatest weapon wasn't her guns, it was her crew. Ensign Lily Ward was just 23 but flew drones like they were extensions of her own mind. Sergeant Boone had once held a mountain pass on Mars for 12 days alone, and Myra Grant, she could rig a shield out of scrap and chewing gum if she had to. They didn't have fancy systems or automated fleets. They had grit, they had experience, and now they had a mission. "Multiple Varnic ships detected near Arcus Point," said Nate Harris, "overcomes from the Shadow Path. Same signature as Maderi fleet. They're moving fast." "Course set," replied Briggs. All ships prepare for burn. As the fleet powered up, Council observers scrambled to make sense of it. The humans hadn't waited for orders. Again, instead, they had reviewed long-range scans, guessed the enemy's next move, and acted just like that. The human fleet reached Arcus Point in under 4 hours. They came out of jump behind a dense asteroid field. The Varnock were ahead, attacking a mining station guarded by an old Takari patrol ship. "Their jamming comes," said Mira, "trying to cut off the miners from the rest of the network." "Not for long," said Briggs. "Launch the stingers." Tiny black drones shot out from the horizon veil and flew low along the asteroids. Avoiding direct scans, they reached the enemy's flank and began broadcasting false sensor readings. The Varnock turned to engage the decoy fleet, which didn't exist. Then the humans struck. The Iron Bridge fired its broadside railguns, punching through Varnock hulls. The shadow path emerged behind the enemy and disabled their engines with precision. Shots, and the horizon veil opened up. She fired missiles, rail slugs, plasma, even magnetic flak. Her crew moved like clockwork. Each order from Briggs met with instant action. The battle was over in 20 minutes. But the message lasted longer. The Council received footage from the Takari patrol ship. All of it. Every hit, every maneuver, every victory. They replayed the scenes again and again. And when they zoomed in on the footage, they saw one thing painted on the side of the human flagship. The name Horizon Veil. No longer a ship of primitives, now a name whispered with respect. The Varnock were not used to failure for centuries. Their war fleets swept across systems like storms, leaving silence behind. With fire, and now, the Varnock were angry. Their ships grew more aggressive, their attacks more frequent. Council members retreated into fear, holding emergency meetings filled with shouting and blame. But Earth did not retreat. Earth struck back. On board the stealth ship Shadow Path, Commander Nate Harris studied the latest Varnock movements. He didn't see random chaos, he saw a pattern. "They're resupplying here," he said, pointing to a blinking dot on the star map. "This cluster looks like a logistics chain, not a war front. They have a backbone," said Briggs, reviewing the data from the horizon veil. "And if we crack it, they collapse." She didn't wait for a vote. She launched the counteroffensive. The plan was risky. Human ships split into small strike teams, targeting fuel depots, drone relays, and carrier factories. They jumped through uncharted systems, dodged black holes, and hid in nebula clouds. Each attack was fast, brutal, and quiet in one raid. The light frigate Grizzly Run cut its engines and coasted through an ice belt, hiding in frozen debris until it got close enough to launch torpedoes into a hidden Varnock supply bunker. In another, a group of volunteers aboard the dropship Lancer 3 boarded a Varnock platform, planted charges, and barely escaped with half the team. The most daring mission came from Nate himself. He took the shadow path deep into Varnock-controlled space beyond the edge of known star charts. With only one escort, the scout cutter Whisper line, he found the main resupply hub, a hollowed-out moon wrapped in biometal. "This thing feeds half their forward fleet," said Mira Overcomes, watching the data pour in. "Then it starves today," Nate replied, using a pulse echo trick he created. Ghost signals of a large fleet inbound. The Varnock scrambled to prepare, powering up weapons, redirecting guards. They never saw Shadow Path slip inside. The ship launched microprobes into the reactor vanes of the station. Within minutes, feedback loops turned into power surges. By the time the Varnock realized the trick, it was too late. The moon lit up from within, cracks glowing blue and red, and then it vanished in a burst of shattered light. Nate didn't stop to celebrate. He jumped back across 5 systems and went dark. Back in Council space, the effects were immediate. Varnock ships slowed. Their formations broke. They stopped winning. And the name they whispered now, with something close to fear, wasn't a species. It was a ship, Shadow Path. The humans became more than survivors. They became the knife in the dark. And every time the Council doubted, another report would arrive. A Varnock depot gone, a convoy destroyed, a human warship vanishing like a ghost, and all the while, the Horizon Veil prepared for the next phase. Because Briggs knew this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The Council chamber no longer rang with laughter. Where once the halls echoed with jokes about human tech and backward weapons, now they filled with nervous whispers. Stern faces stared at the main screen, where footage from Arcus Point and Varnock Depot attacks played on loop. Captain Laura Briggs had become a name. Even children in noble houses knew. So had Horizon Veil and Shadow Path, and the new word that had crept into alien languages across the stars. Human, spoken with caution, inside the grand chamber. Light poured in from crystal skylights, but it felt dim under the weight of what everyone now knew. The Varnak weren't just invading, they were losing to the one species no one had respected, Council. Speaker Loren of the Erathic Confederacy stood and cleared his throat. His voice trembled slightly, not from age, but from a truth he could no longer ignore. "It is time," he said, "to speak of Earth." He motioned to the central display. A rotating hologram of the horizon veil appeared. Lines of combat stats ran beneath. Its spinning form, damage ratios, survival odds, Varnak losses. A silence fell over the delegates. Then came the voice of Ambassador Delka of the Takari Union, the same officer who had once silently nodded to Briggs. "Let the record show," he said, "that without Earth, the Maderi system would be ash." Other voices followed, grumbling at first, then louder, then unified. Some asked for cooperation, some for access to Earth tactics, some simply asked for help. Meanwhile, in a side wing of the station, Captain Briggs walked through quiet halls lined with ancient banners. She had been summoned to observe the meeting, not to speak, but everyone noticed when she entered. Council aides paused. Delegates watched from the corners of their eyes. She wasn't wearing anything flashy, just her black uniform and the quiet calm that had survived 3 wars before this one. "You were right," Ethan said beside her. "They've stopped laughing. Now we'll see if they start listening," she replied. A soft chime echoed through the room. Council guards opened a central door and Speaker Loren stepped down from the high platform. He walked directly to Briggs. He bowed low. The room followed. Even species that didn't bend easily found ways to lower themselves. "Earth," Loren said, "has earned a place at this table." Laura didn't smile. She didn't need to. "We didn't come to be seen," she said. "We came to stop a war." She turned and left, her coat drifting behind her, on her way out. A young translator from the Nerith Coalition ran after her. "Captain," he said, "what is the name of the ship that leads your fleet?" She paused. "The Horizon Veil." She said, "It means—" Laura looked at the stars beyond the window. "It means," she said, "that we see far, fight hard, and never turn back." And with that, Earth was no longer a question in the galaxy. It was the answer. The region known as Corvel's Maw was a cursed stretch of space. Even maps avoided its name. It was a graveyard of stars, a twisted field of broken moons, dying suns, and nebulous storms that swallowed ships whole. Pirates once hid there, nothing ever. Left unchanged, now, the Varnak made their last stand there. They had built their fortress in the Maw's heart, protected by gravity tides and layered cloaks. Their command fleet orbited a shattered dwarf planet surrounded by clouds of ash and debris. The Council hesitated. The other races stalled, but the humans, they moved. Task Force Delta 7 prepared in silence. On the bridge of the Horizon Veil, Captain Briggs stared at a screen full of red. "They want us to come to them," Ethan said. "So we will," she answered. "But not the way they think, from Earth." To the far colonies, ships gathered, the bruised but deadly Iron Bridge, the cunning Shadow Path, the rebuilt Hopewind, and new warships born from scavenged wreckage and stubborn engineers. Even civilian haulers were refitted for battle. Mining lasers turned into cutting beams, cargo holds repurposed for drone swarms. Everyone came, old soldiers, new pilots, people who had lost homes, friends, family. They didn't come for glory, they came to end it. The battle began before the first shot, using old star charts and deep space beacons. The human fleet slingshotted around dead planets and gravity wells. Entering Corval's Maw without warning, without fanfare, the Varnak panicked. Their formation cracked. That's when Briggs struck. The Horizon Veil led the charge through a burning cloud of plasma storms. Her railguns fired in sequence. Targeting the Varnak's heaviest cruiser, a direct hit, split down the middle from the nebula edge. The Shadow Path slipped between collapsing asteroids, shutting down Varnak's sensor buoys and leaving blind spots in their command net. The Hopewind dropped atmospheric drop pods loaded with Marines onto enemy carriers. Ground fighting broke out inside zero-gravity hulls. Every corridor was chaos. Sergeant Boone led the charge with one arm in a sling and a pulse rifle in the other. "We're boarding a hive beast in space," someone had whispered to him before. He only grunted. "We've done worse." Above them all, drones, blacked-out stars, decoys, disruptors, recon units. Even ships that had once been written off launched kamikaze. runs targeting Varnak reactors with salvaged explosives. At the center of it all, the command ship of the Varnak stood like a shadow mountain. Weapons spiking in all directions, Briggs aimed the horizon veil right at it. "We won't break it with missiles," Mira said. "No," Briggs replied, "but we'll make it bleed." The horizon veil accelerated, faster than it should have, engines overheating, systems blinking red. Ethan braced at the console. "This is going to cook us. Then we'll serve hot," Briggs said. They hit the Varnak flagship head-on, not to destroy it, to crack it open, to make space for something worse, from behind. A stealth freighter dropped its cloak and unleashed Earth's newest weapon, the sledgehammer drone. A guided bomb the size of a bus, wrapped in armor and artificial rage, it punched through the wound made by horizon veil, buried deep, and detonated. The flagship imploded, silence followed, the Varnak fleet hesitated, and then they ran, what was left. Of them, the mall went still. One by one, human ships turned their lights inward and began the slow drift home. They didn't cheer, they didn't shout, they just exhaled. It was done, the last great battle. And Earth had not only survived, it had changed the war forever. The silence after victory was the strangest sound of all across the galaxy. War reports stopped, emergency channels cleared, and the name Varnak faded from daily fear. In the orbit of what was once Corvell's Maw, the human fleet floated like ghosts over an ancient battlefield. No one spoke much, not even the young crews who hadn't seen their homeworlds in months. They patched holes, counted the lost, and waited. Captain Laura Briggs sat alone in the command chair of the Horizon Veil. Her ship had survived, barely. Scars ran across her hull. Internal fires had only just been put out. Entire sections were sealed off, but they had one. A soft knock echoed. At the bridge door, Ethan Cole entered, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "We're heroes now," he said with a crooked smile. Handing her one. "They'll forget," Laura replied. "Some will," Ethan said, "but not all. Later." A council transport arrived at the edge of the battlefield, guarded by polished escorts and clean ships. They stepped carefully through the horizon veil, seeing where real war had happened. When they reached Briggs, none of them laughed. Council Speaker Loran cleared his throat. "Captain Briggs, by full vote of the chamber, Earth is now a founding member of the Defense Corps." Laura looked up from a damage report. "We don't need a seat," she said. "We need peace." "Then help us keep it," he replied. In the following days, statues were planned, documents signed, treaties updated. The Takari Union named a school after Shadow Path. The Nerith Coalition launched an engineering prize in honor of Earth's retrofit programs. But Earth rebuilt quietly. No parades, no speeches, just families reunited, just cities repaired. Just the stars watched. At the fleet archives, a small plaque was placed at the base of a model ship. It read, "Horizon Veil, * old steel, strong hands." She went, where others wouldn't, and came back. * Laura visited once, only once. She touched the plaque and left without a word, because she knew something the council still didn't understand. It wasn't pride that saved them, it was resolve. And humans, they never ran, they simply advanced in a different direction.